Upon arrival to the project, I noticed it froze for the first time. For this project, I used 2-inch by 8-inch by 16-foot Douglas fir forest kiln-dried lumber. And for the hardware, I used 2.432-inch by 1.432-inch by 5-inch by 16 gauge galvanized steel angles and a Simpson light rafter U-hanger slopeable 2x8 X-mass finish, which means it has a coating on it which makes it corrosion resistant. Let's raise up the roof! Raise up the roof! Here's the first rafter. It's a 2-inch by 8-inch by 16 foot with a notch cut in it on the bottom where it's hooked onto the wall or sitting on the wall, and at the top it's cut at a 47-degree angle, and it's sitting on the 2-inch by 6-inch slope roof line right there. And I nailed it in on top using the Simpson rafter tie irons, and then on the bottom using the angle irons and screws. On the top I used actually a nail gun. As I was working, I experienced the first snowstorm, wet, soggy snow. My hands got really soaked and wet, and I just had to keep on moving, climbing up and down so much I still stayed warm. Tarp actually got my clothing totally wet, and by the time I finished, I really needed to get into the truck and turn on the heat. I had to push all of the wet snow that piled up on the tarp off and pull the tarp off to start my work. I always screwed the Simpson rafter hangers on first with 1-inch screws before I put them up there, and then I put the angle irons on after I put them up there. With them I put 1-inch screws for the top part of the angle iron, and then 2-inch screws for the bottom part, since I had double studs to screw that part into. These ones that sit on the 2x6 roof line always are a little harder, and I had to use a sawzall to make it fit. Finally, the sun came out for the first time in a few days, so it was very, very nice. It had snowed overnight and it had gotten really cold and froze more than it had the whole year. I started a different method where I screwed down the 4 of them at the bottom with the 45-degree angle irons, and then climbed up to the top and nailed the tops in where the rafter ties were with the nail gun, instead of climbing back and forth for each one. It got a lot faster. As always, this one that sits on the 2x6 slope line always needs extra cutting. I never got them right the first cut. It was a very nice day. It didn't snow and my tarp was still up and the sun was shining. Very beautiful out. I can see snow on them hills though. Better not kid myself. Winter is coming. Gotta keep working. This is the last rafter, and I took all those blocks off that were screwed onto the roof beam, which I had used to bring the roof beam up there, and I had been using it to climb up and down on. So now this rafter fit down perfectly. Right here I'm using 2 by 8 by 15-inch blocks to block in between the rafters. And I was able to use the nail gun to get these in. Right here I'm blocking in the other side now. I ran out of nails. On July 30th, I had adopted a tiny puppy from the neighbor, and I had to feed him with a medicine dropper. He was so small. His mom had passed away on accident. His mom was an Australian Sharpie, and his dad is a Jack Russell and Chihuahua mix, and his dad still comes over to visit.
Come here, Bingo. 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 Hi, Bingo. Hi, Bingo.
I put 1 inch by 8 inch styrofoam on the outside rafters so that when I covered it with siding, it would fit perfectly. Here I begin to put the siding on the upstairs, and I use the 16 gauge nails, 1.5 inches long, and the nail gun. In the beginning it was like Tetris because I didn't want to buy another one, and I ended up having to buy another one anyway, so I should have just bought another one to begin with. When I got out there, I was surprised to find out that a huge wind ripped my tarp down, so I didn't even put it back up. I just decided to put another layer of visqueen on the floor. I screwed a block onto the stud at the bottom, so when I brought this one up, I had something to sit it on. Marked it with a blue line and then cut it with a round saw, battery powered one. For this one I put blocks on the studs again to sit it on, and I also stuck lumbers through the window to sit it on that one to get it up there, and I leaned that tall 16-foot lumber up there to hold it down when I did get it up there. Luckily it wasn't windy and it didn't blow off. The battery died on my battery powered round saw, so I started using an electric round saw. So I had to deal with the cord. I have 1 month and I gotta be out of the condo and into this building. I gotta get windows on it, insulate it, and cover it. When I got out there, I noticed it had warmed up and it rained all night. There was lots of water. The water was all over on the tarp on top of the visqueen, on the floor, almost like a pond. I spent a few hours digging ditches to drain the area under the house, and I also pulled that pond that formed on top of the floor out and dumped it, and used towels to clean the floor up and move the tools all around, and it was a big job. I just knew I had to keep moving, get the siding up on the upstairs and cover this house. I could not keep a tarp up. It seems like this is the second time my tarp just ripped down. And every time I used a tarp before this, I didn't even catch much rain and snow. The only time it really rained a lot was when the tarp ripped down. line got wet, I couldn't make a blue line. This is the last piece of siding, then I can start covering the roof. Here I put the first roof board down, 7/16 inch by 4 feet by 8 feet OSB sheathing. I screwed a stud on the end of the rafters so that the board wouldn't slide off. And I only put 3 screws on that stud holding it in place. I should have put more screws on it. I decided not to put the tarp up again, and I just put visqueen on the floor and thought I would just try to get the roof up as soon as possible and quit fighting with that tarp and the wind. Please subscribe and watch me cover this roof and battle the winds. Thank you very much for watching.